Okay, so now that we have our properties ready to go, we can add some interactivity. This is, of course, encapsulated in our next to-do item. When the Tap Me button is first tapped, it should start the game and show the countdown timer. To achieve this, we have to implement some sort of code to react to a tap on the actual button. Like we've done with every programming task before, let's break down our current to-do list item into smaller steps. So here's what we need to do. We need to handle a tap on the Tap Me button. We need to increment the score. We also need to show a countdown timer and then start the game. Let's handle the first two items first. To handle interactivity, we attach a listener to a button. A listener is a function that is called every time an action occurs. In our case, we want to listen to a click, so we'll add a click listener. It's kind of a weird syntax, so buckle up and hang on.
So here I have my project open, and I have my main activity ready to go. I want to add a listener to my button, so a good place to do this is on Create. To add a listener, I start by writing the variable name Tap Me button. Next, I press the period key. This indicates that I want to call a method or access a property on my button. You'll see that the IDE provides a list of options. You can always search through those options, but for now, continue to write set on click listener. Typically, we'd put an equals sign to assign a value, but in this case, we'll add a function directly to the method. Add an opening brace. Now this function provides a view, so I'll write view for short, and then this arrow symbol. All my code goes after the arrow symbol. Now I'll call the method increment score. Mind you, I haven't written this yet, so the method turns red. We'll handle this in a moment. Finally, I need to close my function, so I add a closing brace. At this point, we need to implement increment score. I can add it manually like so, or I can delete that line and then select the line that calls increment score, hold down the Alt or Option key and press Enter. You'll see I get my list of options. In this case, let's select Create Function and voila, Instant Function. Before we can increment the score, we need a variable to hold the score. Let's add one to the top of the class. Let's give it the name score and set its starting variable to 0. Notice how with the button in the text view, we first declare the variable and later assign the value. In this case, we both created and assigned the value to the variable. Also notice we didn't put a type. In this case, the compiler is able to infer that it's a type of number, or otherwise known as int, short for integer. The compiler knows it's an int based on the value set to it. We could write it like this as well, but I prefer the simpler syntax. Okay, let's write the increment score method. First, let's delete this to-do. This just reminds us to implement the body of the method. The first thing we want to do is increment the score. All we're going to do is to take the score and assign the value of score plus 1. Next, we want to have a variable to hold on to the new text. We call the method getString. GetString is an activity-provided method that lets you grab strings from the R file name. In this case, you're retrieving the strings you added earlier to strings.xml. The code also passes in a string value, which is the current score converted to a string for the placeholder %s you added to the strings file. You'll also notice we're calling toString on our int. All data types in Kotlin are objects, and those objects can have methods. So the variable score can have methods which can be executed like the toString method, depending on the data type. Most numeric data types in Kotlin have a toString method to convert the number to a text representation. Once you have the updated text label, you replace the text property of the game score text view with this new value, so the updated score is displayed on the screen. Now let's run the app and tap the Hit Me button. Look at that, we're getting points. You've just hit quite a milestone in your Android app development career. You set up a new view, given IDs to the relevant subviews, accessed them in your code, and reacted to some user input. These are fundamental tasks of app development, and you will repeat this cycle many thousands of times in your career. Take a moment to appreciate this accomplishment and pat yourself on the back. Well done.